Hello and welcome back to EverlastCyber. In today's video, we'll be going through some practice questions for the CompTIA Cybersecurity Analyst certification. We'll be starting right off with question 1. Which of the following best describes the purpose of a SIEM solution? A. To analyze vulnerabilities in the network. B. To detect and respond to security threats in real time. C. To perform penetration testing. D. To encrypt sensitive data. SIEM does not scan for vulnerabilities. That is usually done by vulnerability scanners, so option A is not our answer. SIEM collects and analyzes logs in order to detect security incidents in real time. So if we look at option B, to detect and respond to security threats in real time, that is likely our answer, but let's also go over the other options. For option C, SIEM does not actively attack systems. Penetration testing tools do attack systems. And in option D, SIEM does not encrypt data. Data encryption is done using encryption tools. So out of the options we've been given, the correct answer is option B. A security information and event manager system collects, analyzes, and correlates security data from various sources in real time in order to detect and respond to threats. Question 2. What is an example of a security control that prevents unauthorized access based on user behavior patterns? A. Firewall. B. Multi-factor authentication. C. Behavioral-based anomaly detection. D. Antivirus software. In option A, firewalls controls inbound and outbound network traffic based on predefined rules, but it does not analyze user behavior. Option B adds extra security layers, but it does not continuously monitor user behavior after authentication. In option C, the behavioral-based anomaly detection is a type of technique that identifies suspicious activities by analyzing deviations from normal user behavior patterns. Behavioral-based anomaly detection uses machine learning and analytics to monitor user behavior patterns such as their login locations, their typing speed, and their access times. Now, it uses these patterns to detect deviations that may indicate unauthorized access or insider threats. In option D, antivirus software detects and removes malware, but it does not analyze user behavior for unauthorized access. So our answer here would be option C. It uses machine learning and analytics to monitor user behavior patterns and detect deviations that may indicate unauthorized access or insider threats. Question 3. Which of the following is a key benefit of implementing role-based access control? A. Increased network speed. B. Reduced administrative workload. C. Enhanced data encryption. D. Improved software updates. RBAC controls user access but not network performance. Firewalls and bandwidth management tools improves network speed, so option A is not our answer. In option B, if we take a look at it, role-based access control usually assigns permissions based on predefined rules rather than on the individual users. So this usually simplifies user management and reduces administrative workload, as well as minimizes security risks by ensuring that users have only the necessary access for their job function. So it gives permissions based on the individual's job function and not based on the individual themselves. In option C, RBAC restricts access but not encryption. Encryption protects data confidentiality, but that is totally different from what the question is asking. In option D, RBAC does not affect software updates because patch management tools handles all updates. So out of all the options we've been presented with, our answer is option B. The key benefit of implementing role-based access control is to reduce administrative workload. Question 4. A cybersecurity analyst is reviewing alerts from an IDS and notices repeated failed login attempts from a single IP address. What type of attack is likely occurring? A. Phishing. B. Man-in-the-middle attack. C. Brute force attack. D. SQL injection. Phishing attacks usually tricks users into revealing credentials through the use of fake emails or website, but it does not involve the repeated login attempts stated in the scenario we have. A man-in-the-middle attack intercepts and alters communication between two parties, but it does not generate failed login attempts from a single IP. A brute force attack involves repeatedly attempting different username and password combinations until the correct credentials are found. So the intrusion detection system detects these multiple failed login attempts, and this indicates a potential brute force attempt. An SQL injection exploits database vulnerabilities using malicious SQL queries, but it is totally unrelated to the scenario where we have the multiple failed login attempts. So our answer is option C, a brute force attack. Question 5. What is the primary purpose of threat intelligence in cybersecurity? A. To ensure compliance with regulations. B. To analyze and predict cyber threats. C. To configure network firewalls. D. To conduct forensic investigations. Compliance frameworks focuses on the legal and security standards, but threat intelligence is about understanding threats, not compliance. So option A is not our answer. Threat intelligence involves collecting, analyzing, and sharing information about current and emerging security and cyber threats. It helps organizations predict, prevent, and respond to attacks by understanding the attacker's tactics, techniques, and procedures. Firewalls use predefined rules to block unauthorized access, while threat intelligence helps to identify evolving threats beyond firewall rules. In option D, digital forensic analyzes past security incidents, while threat intelligence focuses on predicting and preventing future threats. So, the primary purpose of threat intelligence in cybersecurity is to analyze and predict cyber threats, and that is option B. Question 6. Which type of malware disguises itself as legitimate software but has hidden malicious functions? A. Trojan horse. B. Worm. C. Rootkit. D. Ransomware. A Trojan horse is a type of malware that appears to be legitimate software, but it contains hidden malicious codes. Now, once it is executed, it can perform harmful functions like stealing data, creating backdoors, or downloading additional malware. A worm is a self-replicating malware that spreads across networks without needing a host file. Unlike the Trojans, which needs a host file, this does not need a host file. It can spread by itself in a system, and it will replicate the malware and bring those systems down. Rootkits hides deep in a system to gain persistent, stealthy access, but they are not necessarily disguised as legitimate software. While a ransomware encrypts files and demands for payment in order to decrypt them, it does not usually disguise itself as legitimate software. Out of all the options, our answer is option A, the Trojan horse. It usually appears harmless, but it contains malicious code that executes once installed and potentially allowing unauthorized access by creating backdoors or even downloading additional malware. Question 7. What is the primary goal of penetration testing? A. To remove malware. B. To identify security weaknesses. C. To update firewall rules. D. To configure security policies. Penetration testing does not remove malware. It focuses on finding vulnerabilities in a network or in a system. Penetration testing is the ethical hacking process that is used to identify security vulnerabilities in systems, applications, or networks before attackers can exploit them. It usually simulates real-world attacks in order to improve cybersecurity defenses. In option C, firewall rules can be adjusted based on the penetration test results, but updating them is not the primary goal of penetration testing. And in option D, security policies are set based on security frameworks and best practices, but penetration testing identifies the gaps rather than configuring policies. So our answer here is option B. The primary goal of penetration testing is to identify security weaknesses before attackers can exploit them and wreak havoc. Question 8. Which of the following best describes a false positive in a security monitoring system? A. A legitimate threat that is not detected. B. A threat that is correctly identified. C. A non-malicious activity incorrectly flagged as a threat. D. An undetected security breach. A legitimate threat that is not detected is a false negative because the real threat is missed by the system, making it even more dangerous. In option B, a threat that is correctly identified is a true positive because the system has accurately detected and reports the threat as a real one. A false positive occurs when a security monitoring system like the same antivirus, IDS, IPS, when it mistakenly identifies benign activity as a threat. Now, this can lead to unnecessary investigations and wasted resources. In option D, an undetected security breach means that a real attack occurred, but it was not detected. And this is also like the false negative scenario. So, out of these options, the one that best describes a false positive in a security monitoring system is option C, a non-malicious activity that has been incorrectly flagged as a threat. So, once this is flagged and investigation starts, this can lead to wasted resources. Question 9. An attacker sends multiple SYN packets but never completes the handshake. What type of attack is this? A. SQL injection. B. SYN flood. C. DNS spoofing. D. Zero-day attack. An SQL injection involves inserting malicious SQL queries into a vulnerable input field to access or manipulate a database, but it is not related to SYN packets. A SYN flood attack is a type of denial of service attack where an attacker sends a large number of SYN packets without completing the three-way handshake. This overloads the target system's resources and prevents legitimate connections from being established. DNS spoofing involves altering DNS records in order to redirect traffic to malicious sites, but it doesn't really manipulate the connection requests. A zero-day attack exploits a previously unknown vulnerability in software, but it is not specific to SYN packets or connection attempts. So, the term that best describes the attack in the scenario is a SYN flood attack. It exploits the TCP handshake process by sending a large number of SYN requests, but it does not complete the handshake, as we can see in the screenshots here. So a large number of SYN packets, which are the initial connection request, are sent, but the three-way handshake is not completed. This overloads the target system's resources and prevents legitimate connections from being established. So this is a SYN flood attack, option B. Question 10. Which of the following is the best method for securing stored passwords? A. Encrypting them with AES 256. B. Storing them in plain text. C. Hashing and salting them. D. Using base 64 encoding. In option A, encryption is useful for securing data in transit or at rest, but it is not the best option for password storage because it requires key management and this can be vulnerable if the key is compromised. Storing passwords in plain text is highly insecure and exposes them to theft in case of a breach. So option B is not our answer. Looking at option C, hashing is a process of converting a password into a fixed size string of characters, typically using algorithms like SHA-256. Salting then adds a unique random string to the password before hashing it, thereby making it difficult for attackers to use pre-computed tables like the rainbow table in order to crack passwords. So generally speaking, this is the best method for securely storing passwords. In option D, base 64 encoding is not a secure method because it is easily reversible and it doesn't provide any cryptographic protection for passwords. So our answer here is option C. Question 11. What is the primary purpose of a vulnerability scan? A. To detect and report security flaws. B. To actively exploit system weaknesses. C. To encrypt sensitive data. D. To log system activities. A vulnerability scan is a process that automatically scans systems, applications, or networks for known vulnerabilities or weaknesses. It helps to identify potential security risks such as outdated software, missing patches, or misconfigurations so that they can be addressed before attackers can exploit them. Option B describes exploitation or penetration testing, and this involves actively trying to compromise systems. Vulnerability scans do not exploit weaknesses, they only help to identify them. In option C, encryption protects data confidentiality, but with respect to the question, vulnerability scans focuses on identifying the security flaws and not on encrypting data. And in option D, system logging records system activities for monitoring or troubleshooting purposes, and so it doesn't apply to the question being asked. Out of this option, we'll be going with option A. The primary purpose of a vulnerability scan is to detect and report security flaws. Question 12. A cybersecurity analyst needs to analyze network traffic for suspicious activity. Which tool is best suited for this task? A. Nmap. B. Nessus. C. Metasploit. D. Wireshark. Nmap is a network scanner that is used for discovering hosts and services on a network, but it is not designed for real-time traffic analysis. Nessus is a vulnerability scanner that identifies weaknesses in systems, but it does not analyze network traffic for suspicious activity. Wireshark is a packet capture and analysis tool that is used to inspect network traffic in detail, while Metasploit is a penetration testing framework used for exploiting vulnerabilities and testing defenses, but it is not used for monitoring network traffic. So the best tool that will help this cybersecurity analyst to analyze network traffic for suspicious activity is option D, Wireshark. It is a network protocol analyzer that captures and inspects network traffic in real time, as we can see on the screenshots there. So it allows the analyst to monitor, analyze, and troubleshoot network communications, thereby helping to detect suspicious or malicious activity by examining packet level details. So our answer is option D, Wireshark. Question 13. What is the primary function of a web application firewall? A. To monitor internal network traffic. B. To protect against web-based attacks. C. To filter spam emails. D. To encrypt web traffic. In option A, a web application firewall focuses on external web traffic, while the internal network traffic is monitored by network firewalls. So, option A is not a function of a web application firewall. It does not monitor internal network traffic. It only monitors the external web traffic. Looking at option B, which says to protect against web-based attack, a web application firewall is designed to protect web applications by filtering and monitoring the HTTP and HTTPS traffic. So it helps to defend against web-based attacks like SQL injections, cross-site scripting, and cross-site request forgery. And it ensures that these malicious traffic does not reach the application. In option C, spam email filtering is done by email security solutions and not the web application firewall. While in option D, encryption of web traffic is done through the SSL TLS protocols, but not the web application firewall. So the primary function of a web application firewall based on the options we're given is option B, to protect against web-based attacks like SQL injection and cross-site scripting. Question 14. Which attack attempts to exploit a database by injecting malicious SQL statements? A. Buffer overflow. B. Cross-site scripting. C. SQL injection. D. Command injection. A buffer overflow occurs when data exceeds the allocated space in memory, potentially allowing attackers to execute arbitrary code or crash the system, but this is totally unrelated to SQL injections. Cross-site scripting attacks inject malicious scripts into web pages to be executed in the user's browser, and this is done by stealing the cookies or session tokens, but it does not manipulate databases. SQL injection is an attack where malicious SQL statements are injected into input fields such as the search bars or the login forms in order to manipulate the database. The goal of this type of attack is to retrieve, modify, or delete sensitive data, or even to execute unauthorized commands within the database. In option D, command injection involves inserting malicious commands into an application that allows system-level command execution, but this is totally different from the SQL injection, which specifically targets database. Out of these options, our answer would be option C. SQL injections are used to exploit databases by injecting malicious SQL statements. Question 15. What is the main purpose of a honeypot in cybersecurity? A. To detect and analyze cyber threats. B. To encrypt network traffic. C. To improve network performance. D. To conduct vulnerability scanning. A honeypot is a decoy system on network that is set up to attract attackers. It appears to have vulnerabilities, thereby enticing malicious actors to interact with it. Now, when they do this, it allows security professionals to monitor, detect, and analyze the various attack methods in this controlled environment, and this will give them insight into potential threats. In option B, encryption is done through protocols like SSL and TLS, but not through honeypots. Honeypots are primarily used for deception and for threat analysis. In option C, honeypots do not enhance network performance because their purpose is to serve as a trap for attackers. And in option D, vulnerability scanning identifies security weaknesses in systems, but a honeypot simulates these vulnerabilities in order to attract attackers and study them. So the main purpose of a honeypot in cybersecurity is A. To detect and analyze cyber threats. Question 16. Which of the following best describes a zero-day vulnerability? A. A fully patched system flaw. B. An unknown software vulnerability. C. A scheduled security update. D. A type of phishing attack. A patched flaw is one that has been identified and fixed, so this is no longer a zero-day attack. A zero-day vulnerability is a flaw in software that is unknown to both the vendor and the public, and this can be exploited by attackers before the vendor is able to release a fix. The term zero-day refers to the fact that the vulnerability has been discovered but has had 0 days to be patched or addressed. Looking at option C, a scheduled security update is a planned fix for known vulnerabilities, so it is not a case where the vulnerability is unknown. And in option D, phishing involves tricking users into revealing sensitive information, but it is totally unrelated to zero-day vulnerabilities, which are about software flaws. So the option that best describes a zero-day vulnerability is option B. It is an unknown software vulnerability, and it can be exploited by attackers before the vendor is able to release a fix. Question 17. What is the primary goal of threat hunting? A. To actively seek out hidden threats. B. To configure firewalls. C. To scan for vulnerabilities. D. To encrypt sensitive files. Threat hunting is a proactive security practice where analysts actively search for hidden or unknown threats in a network or system. It involves analyzing data, detecting patterns, and identifying potential threats before they can cause harm. Unlike reactive measures, threat hunting focuses on finding threats that may bypass the traditional security control. So this is not a reactive measure, it is a proactive security practice. In option B, firewall configuration is part of network security, but it is not the focus of threat hunting. Option C, scanning for vulnerabilities involves identifying weaknesses that can be exploited. On the other hand, threat hunting focuses on actively finding the ongoing threats in order to address them. In option D, encryption protects data confidentiality. However, threat hunting is concerned with detecting threats rather than securing data. So out of these options, the primary goal of threat hunting is option A, to actively seek out hidden threats before they can cause harm. Question 18. What is the key characteristic of asymmetric encryption? A. It uses a single key for encryption and decryption. B. It is less secure than symmetric encryption. C. It uses a public and private key pair. D. It cannot be used for authentication. Option A describes symmetric encryption because the same key is used for both encryption and decryption, unlike the asymmetric encryption that uses a key pair. In option B, asymmetric encryption is generally considered more secure for tasks like key exchange and authentication. However, it is a bit slower than symmetric encryption. In asymmetric encryption, there are two keys involved. There's a public key that is used for encryption, and then there's a private key that is used for decryption. The public key can be shared openly, but the private key remains a secret. This method is more secure for tasks like secure communications and digital signatures. In option D, asymmetric encryption is frequently used for authentication, especially in protocols like SSL, TLS, and digital signatures. So, from these options, the key characteristic of asymmetric encryption is that it uses a public and private key pair, and that is option C. Question 19. Which security framework is widely used for implementing cybersecurity best practices? A. ITIL. B. NIST CSF. C. Prince2. D. Agile. The ITIL, or Information Technology Infrastructure Library, is a framework focused on IT service management, but it is not specific about cybersecurity. The NIST Cybersecurity Framework is a widely adopted framework that provides guidelines and best practices for managing and improving cybersecurity risks. It helps organizations to identify, protect, detect, respond to, and recover from cyber incidents, thereby making it a comprehensive framework for implementing strong cybersecurity practices. Prince2, or Projects in Controlled Environments, is a project management methodology, so it doesn't really relate to a cybersecurity framework. While Agile is a methodology for software development that focuses on iterative progress, but it is not tailored for cybersecurity practices. So the framework that is used for implementing cybersecurity best practices is option B, the NIST Cybersecurity Framework. Question 20. What type of malware encrypts files and demands payments for decryption? A. Spyware. B. Adware. C. Ransomware. D. Rootkit. A spyware is designed to monitor and collect information about a user or system without their knowledge, but it doesn't encrypt files for ransom. Adware displays unwanted ads on a system, typically for profit, but it does not encrypt files or demand for payment. Ransomware is a type of malware that encrypts files on a victim's computer or network and demands a ransom payment in exchange for the decryption key. Ransomware can be delivered through various means like phishing emails or malicious downloads, and it often targets valuable data. A rootkit is a type of malware designed to gain administrative access to a system, and it remains hidden in the system, but it does not encrypt any files or demand for payment. So our answer here is option C. Ransomware encrypts files and demands a ransom for the decryption key. This brings us to the end of the practice questions and answers for the CompTIA Cybersecurity Analyst Certification exam. Don't forget to like, comment, and share, and also hit the subscribe button so that you'll be informed when our next informative video will be dropping. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.